So welcome to Scrapbook Live. I'm Megan Jacks. Today is January 10th, and I have a fun layout for you today from the Creative Memories blog. It was originally published back in November. It was one of the first ones that Creative Memories released on the blog for the new Adventure Parks collection. So you'll see that the sample uses the Adventure Parks collection, a very bright, a lot of primary colors in there. It's a fun, I really like the prints of the adventure parks. We don't go to the amusement parks too much. I don't have a lot of photos to use with it, but I really like the colors. And then, for today's layout, I'm going to be using Seasonal Sightings. I don't know if you guys are like me, but I have just a couple project folders full of Christmas stuff. Where things have all just got, I slide them in there, and I really love the traditional red and green of Seasonal Sighting, and so I'm going to be using that. I think I do have one. One of the papers is from the Shades of Seasonal Sighting, and so I'll be using that for today. And it's just going to be a single page layout. You could carry this over into a 2-page layout if you need to. I might consider that. I probably won't demo it today. I'm doing Christmas photos from this year, and in all honesty, I didn't take a ton. I don't know how you guys are. I sometimes feel like my Christmas photos get a little redundant. It's the same thing every year. And we've really kind of gotten us to the point now where I really could consolidate down for our family album to just like one, maybe a 2-page spread. I probably should take more pictures. And maybe I'll try that next year, is doing even more pictures, showing more of the traditions. But this year, my family, we did a Zoom Christmas with my parents, and they stayed in Arizona. We'll see them here in a couple weeks, or just next week. All right, so let me go ahead, put you down over here on the overhead camera, and we will get started. So I've got the handout. The handout is always on my blog. It is a copy of what is on the Creative Memories blog. And if you do want to go to that Creative Memories blog post, you can scan the QR code here with your phone. There's also the date of the blog post. And just as a reminder, when you're on the Creative Memories blog, there's some different ways you can search for things on the blog. You can go in and type in the collection name of the that was used. You can also go search by date, or you can search by tool. So some tools obviously are going to pop up more than others. Things like the corner rounder is a little harder to search for because it's going to pop up in more layouts. But if you're looking for a very specific tool, especially for things like the borders, if you're needing to search for borders, type in the tool name, and that will take you to a listing of the collection or the blog post used with that tool. Okay, so I've got my handout here. Just as a quick reminder, there is the hashtag at the bottom. If you do share your layout in the Scrapbooking with Megan group, go ahead, add that hashtag so that we can find it there. So for this layout, we need a couple of key things here. We need a background paper, and you can see they have a very thin outside edge here of the blue. So they use the blue fireworks paper out of the adventure parks. I am going to be using the darker green dotted paper. This is out of Seasonal Sightings. This is everything I'm using is from Seasonal Sightings. But this is out of the Shades of the Season pack, and I am going to go ahead and cut out the middle of this because I just love the red and the green, and I will definitely be able to use this. So I'll be able to cut out a 1-inch frame all the way around, cut out a 10 by 10 square. And then they want us to go ahead, and the second step will be to create all of our notched pieces here, the photos and this. They use a mat. I actually have a photo that I'm going to use in this larger space here. And then we come down and we'll use where they show a Cranberry Cardstock. It's all the way down here in step 7. I'm going to be using this piece of tonal paper. This is out of the Seasonal Sightings tonal pack. Just a nice little bit of contrast, a little bit more of a lime green compared to the more traditional green there, but it all coordinates really well. I do have, where you see some of the pattern paper, I'm going to be coming in with some of this tree light paper from Seasonal Sightings. I've got some Cranberry Cardstock. I've got a couple mats. My goal is, where you see a photo here for the top 5 moments, I have photo. And then down here where we see just more of that icon paper, I have a mat, a journal mat that still has those, the lights on it. So I'm going to go ahead and add that so I can add some journaling down here at the bottom. And then I've got photos that I have cropped to, well, actually I printed them as side by side. I actually did this in bed. Yesterday morning, I woke up, my cat wakes me up really, really early. So I have a tendency to it's 6 o'clock in the morning. It's cold in my house. I do not need to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I have a tendency to just mess around on my phone. And one of the things I did was I used the Project Life app to go ahead and make the little collages. Normally I use my Creative Print app that goes along with my Epson PM400, but that app works best when you are able to go ahead and just print right then. And I was creating little collages that I wanted to come back later and print. So I just made these 4x6 collages, and then I was able, once I had got up later in the day, I went ahead and then just sent those off to the printer. So I printed, I think I did 3 pairs of 4x6 or the 3x4 images, and that way I only needed 5, but that way I could pick and choose. I think I have 2 of Cody here that I'll decide which one I'm going to use. All right, so to get started here, we are going to work with a background paper. I mentioned I'm going to use that dotted paper from the the Shades of Seasonal Sighting. And I'm going to cut this down. I am going to cut out a 1-inch frame because we can see on our original layout, we just see that outside edge. We really don't see much of that. So that'll just be the easiest here. So let me grab my trimmer, and depending on your how you like to do this, you can use the binder clips. I'm going to see if I have some quickly available here to set your measurements. Since we're going to do 4 cuts that are the exact same, and I'm going to do a 1-inch frame, I'm going to come over here, set my white line at 1 inch, and I'm going to put my binder clip to the outside edge of my trimmer, of my blade housing. Then I'm going to come down here, move my trimmer down, that white line down to 11 inch, and go ahead and set my binder clip. Now I've got some stops in place. I'm going to line this up. I need to make sure I'm at the top, or I'm going to bring it back to the horizontal position, and I'm going to line it up at 1 inch, making sure that I'm flush here along this edge where this is the 0 of my trimmer. And go ahead and cut from clip to clip. Rotate and repeat. That's the great part about setting the binder clips in place. You just set those, and then after that, all you have to worry about is one measurement where you set your paper, and keep working around. Okay. This is scrap. I'm going to save it for another project. Remove my binder clips. I am going to go ahead. I'm going to jump to step 7 here, where they cut that canary cardstock. They cut it down to 11.5 by 11.5, and I'm going to do that really quick. Just to kind of get some of these bigger pieces out of the way. I do need this piece is gonna, you need it cut to be able to position your pieces. So just by cutting it, getting it done, cutting off a 1/2 inch, so 11.5 by 11.5. I am not going to adhere it to my frame yet. In fact, I'm going to move my frame completely out of the way. I don't need it. I'm going to just set it to the side. So it wants me to go ahead and use the black cardstock. And where they're using black, I am using cranberry. And it says I need 5 3.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles and a 5 by 7 inch rectangle. Now you can see the smaller black rectangles are used here to mat our photos. Right in here. The larger one goes with this piece. I already have some of these cut. I was able to cut some out of some scraps. I was making sure I liked the cranberry. So I already have my 5 by 7 cranberry cut. I have 2. Do I just have 2? I thought I had 3. I have 2 of my 3.5 by 4.5 inch mats. So I'm going to cut 3 more 4.5 inch mats. Really quick, I'm going to grab, I can see I have some, instead of cutting a brand new piece, well, I'll just cut a brand new piece. I always use cranberry. I can use plenty of scraps of cranberry. So I know when I have the 3.5 inch tall, I can get 3 of those in a 12 inch length. So I'm going to bring this out to that 4.5 inch wide. So 4.5 inch wide, I'll rotate and cut these at 3.5. And 3.5. So now I have 5 3.5 inch mats. And I have a 5 by 7 inch mat. Now I think I need, I'm going to need another mat for this piece, this journal piece I'm putting down here in the lower right-hand corner, but I'm going to wait to cut it until I see what size. I think I was going to be able to get it out of this scrap, because you can see this piece, a lot of it ends up being cut off. So I'm going to wait. And one of the steps is actually, once you get your big pieces into place, you'll come back in and fill in the corners with cut pieces of designer paper or other decorative elements. So we'll do that. That is step 9. So now step 3, we're going to go ahead and start using step 3 and so forth. We start using our corner rounder. So last week we talked about the corner rounder. This is the new one from Creative Memories. If you weren't with us last week or you didn't watch last week's Scrapbook Live, you will know, well, if you didn't watch them, you wouldn't necessarily know when I talked about the fact that this corner rounder can go from 2 sides. You can go in the traditional side, which gives you that rounded edge, or you can come in here to the back side and you can punch what refer to as a notch, and the directions from Creative Memories, I'll just say the reverse of the 2-way corner rounder, and it just cuts that notch. So as compared to the rounder, you have a notch. One thing you want to note when you're using your corner rounder from the notch side is take the time to make sure you get this lined up in there straight. It is possible, if you go too fast, to be kind of tilted and then your notches are not centered. You want those notches to be centered as much as possible. So you might want to practice if you have never used the reverse side of your 2-way trimmer or corner rounder, the notch edge. You might want to practice. I'm going to go ahead and start notching things. I did pick a mat to go around my photo there. So all 3 of these layers will get notched. All of my 5 of my mats are going to get notched, and then all of my photos will get notched. I've got a lot of notching to do. The downside to the notching is it does not, the notch does not stay, it doesn't have a little trash. Like when you punch with your corner rounder, it goes into a little compartment here, but when you're using the notch side, it doesn't do that, but that's okay. So we'll just got a lot of notching to do for this one, since there's so many elements that are going to be notched. If you guys make this layout, what do you think you're going to make it out of? Tell me that in comments. I've got a lot of notching to do here, so it's not like I'm going to be We got a few minutes here. Maybe you're scrapping with us. I'm not sure how many of you scrap along with me. I know some people are catching me on a lunch hour, or other, they prefer to watch and then they'll crop later. I know Kristen in Issaquah, she's local to me and I've met her several times at local crops. And she told me one time she watches me, the Scrapbook Lives, while she's doing laundry. It works out well for her for that. So that's pretty, that was a great way to entertain yourself well, hopefully entertain yourself while doing laundry. Angie's watching at work. We are supposed to get some snow here in the Seattle area, potentially this weekend. The weather is supposed to be pretty, it's scrapbooking weather. It really is. I think it's going to be that way across much of the country. And my kids are excited potentially about a snow day. I have a senior in high school, and my senior is very excited about it because they will not have to make up any days lost because they'll have graduated already. So they graduate on a Saturday, and then the last day of school is like that Wednesday or Thursday. So they luck out if we do have to extend the school year. Now, to be fair, Cody will probably also not do those final days because we'll be ready to move. So, love seeing the comments of what you guys are thinking you're going to use for this layout. Some graduation, additional Christmas, dogs, or camping. This is a great one when you have just a few photos. You will want to use vertical photos. But the nice thing about it is you've got some, it's easier now, I think, to get those 3x4 photos than it would have been 10 years ago. All the apps for our phone digitally. I mean, can you imagine trying to, all those 4x6s that we took with our just regular cameras, having to come in and crop things down. All right. I'm a little bummed to crop off, to notch out these Christmas lights, but it's going to work out okay. I still have to go after my small photos, but we're getting there. We're getting through all these things. I should tell you about the gifts. So my son, Santa brought him a George Foreman grill. He has an apartment, and the apartment they have grills there, but he said he's not real super confident with the regular grill. So we're trying the George Foreman, and he did message me and said that he really enjoyed the George Foreman. He used it to make brats over the weekend, and they turned out really good. So I was excited for that for him. We tested it at home. I showed him how to use it. So it should hopefully allow him to make some foods a little bit differently than he was getting tired of, like pan-fried chicken. So I do applaud him for trying different things. I do think it's easier nowadays to learn to cook because there's so many tutorials out there than it was when I was, coming through my 20s. There was starting to be more and more tutorials, but YouTube didn't pick up really until I was most of the way through my 20s, I think, by the time YouTube took off. I may even have been more into my 30s. So finishing up here, all these corner rounders. Cody, one of his presents he was excited about is he got a pair of Crocs. He had been wanting a pair of Crocs, and he got a pair of Crocs. He was super excited. Puts them into sport mode, if you guys know what that is. Sport mode is when you put the backs down across your heels so that they don't fly off. And he's rather bummed this week he hasn't been able to wear them to school because it's been so wet. And then my middle child, they wanted a record player. I tell you, who knew that I would be buying a record player in 2023? You thought those things were all done for, but no, they're back, popular. Okay, so now it's time to adhere these photos to the mats. And I love it. Jill's saying her mom was her YouTube when it came to cooking. Yes, my mom was my YouTube. I did learn to cook a lot from my mom. My sister-in-law is a really good cook. And I moved away from home when I was 19. My husband and I, we weren't married at the time, but we moved to Arizona. And so my sister-in-law lived there, my husband's older sister. And so we would get together with her, and she's a really good cook. And she showed me a lot of different things. I think that was, my mom showed me how she cooked, and that was great. I knew how to cook all the things that I grew up with for the most part. But it was really nice for my sister-in-law to show me some different ways to cook things, different foods that maybe we didn't traditionally have. Some of the things were things that she had grown up with my husband. And some other things were just, she liked to experiment, and she would help me out with the results of the things that she found that worked. So yeah, Belinda is saying she sold all of her albums at a garage sale. And so that's what's really funny about this is, I never had records. Well, I did. Did I have records? When I was 10 years old, and so this would have been in the late 80s, my parents gave me for Christmas the opportunity, the choice. I could either get a record player or I could get a CD player. And I chose a record player. I said I wanted a record player because I'm like, I don't know what these little disc things are, but they're not doing anything. I wanted a record player. And then I didn't really have any records. And obviously I made a poor choice. I didn't need a record player. So, but my dad has records, but it's all, like 1970s rock. And, it's not anything my 17-year-old is going to be excited about. She wants Taylor Swift and some other people I've never heard of. So anyway, here we go. I think now everything is notched out. Okay. Oh my goodness. All right. I guess we should call them, Andy's saying, the vinyl. Yeah, that is more. We gotta be trendy with this. It's the vinyl. Gotta have the vinyl. All right, so now what I'm gonna do here is we wanna work with our 11.5-inch square without anything behind it, because we're gonna lay things on here and then cut them off. So I've got my paper on here. I think what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and just give it a little bit of repo adhesive on the back and secure it down to my mat. That way, if I do want to use any of the measurements on my mat to help me line things up, I can. So what you do when you have a square, obviously, I don't have 1/2-inch marks here, but I can just come in and where my corners cut into those angled lines is where it's going to line up. Okay. Now, things are just going to be put on here, and you have to find that angle that works for you. You can use the sample to give you a little bit of a guidance. You can see that the very tip of this lower right-hand corner touches the edge, and we are losing a little bit of the tip at the top. We're actually losing a little bit of the top of the the photo itself. So I can come up here and maybe place it about right there. And the angle, you're going to have to figure out what works for you. If you don't like angles, because some people don't, I've had comments that, they don't like putting their photos on an angle. Well, then just put them on here straight, give yourself a little bit of a staggered look, and you are all set to go. So I'm going to start about like that. And then this photo here, I knew I wanted at the bottom because you can see here on this center photo at the bottom, you cut off quite a bit of the bottom. So you got to be able to use a photo that will work. And this photo does, it works just fine. I don't care if I cut off the keyboard. I just wanted the screen. That's going to go there, but I'll mat it. And I need to have a photo here at the top that if I cut off a little bit, it's okay. I may have to adjust this photo a little bit more. I think I can bring it up. I can cut it back straight, re-notch it, and bump it up just a little bit. The other thing you can do is if you have a piece of paper is, you know, just come across the top here if you need to see. Like I might be okay. This picture of Kitty, I'm getting up towards the top. She discovered the joys of the wrapping curling ribbon. We only had it on a couple of pieces because we knew that she would potentially want to bite at it. The cat we had before was a prolific. We couldn't use any kind of bows or ribbons or anything. She would just eat it all. And that was never good. And then coming here with this one. And then Cody getting his Crocs. Okay. So here we go. I think that is about how it's going to be. I'm going to adjust this photo. I'm going to cut it straight where I notched it, and I'm going to re-notch it. Bringing it up within the frame a little bit. I may have brought it up too far. Bring this down. That'll let this one come down a little bit more. And you just have to play with it a little bit. I do not want this to create a circle here. You can see how that's creating a little bit of a circle. I don't want that. I want this to be up a little bit more. The Croc thing coming back. So I see comments about some, you know, Bonnie Jo saying that her 20-year-old wanted tomato Crocs. And I laugh because, again, I mean, I had Crocs. I had lots of Crocs. Lots of colors of Crocs. They were super comfortable. They are super comfortable. And I do still have some. I am just checking to see how this is coming on this edge here. And I think I'm okay. It's going to cut off a little bit of that edge, but that's okay there. Up at the top here, I've got a little bit more space for Kitty. It looks good. Coming here at the bottom, I think we're okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, and this angle isn't any given angle. I mean, you could use a ruler. Really, the first one you set into place is going to be the key. So I'm going to double check this. That's fine. So I'm just holding it into place, and I'm going to go ahead and put some adhesive down. I'm going to worry about the journal box here in a minute. I'm worried about just now about getting these photos in place. So now let me put this one here at the bottom. And the reason I'm going to do that is because when I shortened it, I definitely need to make sure it's not I'm not putting any pressure here. So I'm not putting any pressure down on my photos yet, right? Because I have that adhesive there, but by not putting any pressure, I can still move things around. And that's really, I need to be able to wiggle some things. But once I wiggle them into place, I want to be able to then put my pressure. I'm looking for an even spacing here. And then looking here for an even spacing. Lining up where my notches are. I'm eyeballing it. If you want to use your ruler to try to, you can measure in between the spaces, you could cut a piece of paper that would serve as kind of that positioning. I actually think I need to come here a little closer. I'm gonna bring everything over a little closer, tighten up those grout lines. I call them the grout lines, that spacing between my photos. I'm gonna tighten that up a little bit because I wanna make sure these photos over here on the left-hand side have plenty of space. All right, so I like how those are positioned. I'm not gonna push down quite yet. I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of set this to the side. Well, this piece here, I'm gonna cut this to 4.5 by 6.5. I need to trim this square down. I'm gonna trim it over here. Let's see if this comes on like such. I didn't really want to, I didn't want to double mat it because I wanted to be, if I double mat it, then I have even less of my journaling space available. But maybe I will. I'm trying to figure out how much journaling space I will have. I'm going to try it without. So I'm just going to notch this corner. Everything's going to get cut off, except it's not long enough. You can see down here in the corner, I've got a little bit of green. Cody, Cody does get cut off a little bit, but I think it's going to work out okay because I think what I'm going to try to do is come in, even with those little banners from the new banner punch. Where did I put that punch? I think what I'm going to do is punch out some little banners and I can put on here like what they got as a gift. So having him shifted here a little bit, I think will actually work out okay. I think it's going to be fine. If I need to, I can reprint and we'll see how bad he gets cut out. But what I need here is I'm going to need a longer piece. So I'm going to come back to my piece here and I'm going to go ahead and cut this at 5 inches wide. Well, we'll cut it at, yeah, 5 inches wide because those were 5 by 7. I'm just going to go ahead and cut it to 5 by 7. I'm going to definitely be cutting some off, but I'm at this point just trying to, sometimes when you're doing things live, you just kind of have to go with the path of least resistance to get it done. Whereas maybe if I wasn't live, I would do things a little bit differently. My other option is to come in with a square journal box there. All right, this area is going to be, this is going to irritate me a little bit. It's just not quite what I was hoping for, but I'm going to make it work. We'll make it work. Okay. Put that on as such. This will all get trimmed off. And then I need a little piece. I need some little pieces to come in here. And this is where I'm going to use the paper, this paper, the Christmas lights. These are all 3.5, or they're 3.5 inches wide. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that to the same width. So 3.5 inches. And I can cut right there. Notch one corner. Let's see here. Does it matter too much? I don't think so. The lights are non-directional, up and down wise. There's no top or bottom per se. So this is going to get put over here. Yeah, I'm going to have to move those things. I'll get them. Everything's moving around a little bit. Okay, one of the things I can do to fix my situation here is I'm going to slide this over. what I'm trying to do is this corner right here where I have the notch, I really need to be, that's where I slice it off. Then you don't see that it's notched. So I'm going to scoot everything over a little bit. After I already worked so hard to put down this. Just making some adjustments. That's the downside to a layout like this. You just have to have a little bit more patience as you're putting things together. Repo adhesive may have been a good choice too. Sliding things around. I'll go ahead and come in here with another notched piece. Just I'm going to cut this. It's already 3.5 inches wide. I'm going to cut it to 4.5 and notch 2 of the corners. I don't think it's going to really show. I'm just going to use a tiny bit of it, so it's not even going to show. All right. So I think I have everything where I want it. And I can just start working my way, finalize those lines, making sure everything looks as even as possible. And just work my way through the layout, pushing things into place. Linda's saying it's not one of her favorite pages so far. So yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a balance to try to figure out how exactly you want to do it. It looks a little crazy right now. I'm hoping that once we get it trimmed up, it'll look better. So one of the things I need to do here is I want to make sure things are secure. So what if I move them, flip them around, that they're not going to go falling off my page, because that would really be frustrating. Okay, so now putting this into the trimmer is always a little bit of a challenge when you've got, we don't have a huge buffer on either side of the trimmer. I'm not even sure I can use the trimmer. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to come in with my scissors and cut things. Even just cutting around my corners is going to maybe allow me to put it in my trimmer. I'm cutting off some of the bulk. That will allow me to get in here closer and cut it flush. I'm right-handed, so I only like to cut from a certain direction, like from a certain side. Let's see here. I'd like to use my trimmer on some of this. Jenny's like, I'm undecided. Perfection does take a little bit of time. This is one of those layouts that it's when you're feeling a little bit crafty. There we go. Here I'm not relying on my trimmer to make this to a right angle. I am really looking at where the top and the bottom of my paper is and making sure that I'm, going along where I can see the cut groove of my blade. I am having to press down hard because I am going through cardstock and photos. And I also don't have a super solid table under me. That's an improvement that is coming with the, when I move upstairs. My table upstairs will be nice and solid. It won't be just a folding table. There we go. Okay, I think I have it completely trimmed up now. Okay, so now Coming back over here to my cutting mat or my frame that I made. So now here is starting to take a little bit more shape. So I'll go ahead. I'm going to put some adhesive on this edge. And you'll have about 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Oh, my paper, there we go. Okay. So there's the base layout itself. So now it would be time to come in and put in some of those decorative elements, and I have to figure out where I put it all. So for seasonal sightings, I do have some stickers left that I can start working with. I need to figure out, I've got some embellishments, lots of embellishments left over of different things that I can add in here to add a little bit of more detail. I think up here at the top, I was debating, I was going to maybe go ahead and punch the 2024, like 2024, or no, excuse me, 2023 for the year. You know, obviously I want to make sure that the year is on here because otherwise I'll forget. But there's lots of different embellishment details that I can come in. I want to keep it kind of whimsical with some of them because I've got the lights are in there. But I've got, you know, various things to be able to use. I just have to figure out what I want to do. And I did talk about using the new punch, the new banner punch. It does make those cute little banner pieces that pop out. So I'm going to punch a white one where I can, oh my gosh. I'm just using it as a handheld punch here. And I can come in and put on little banners of like what they got. If I wanted to put like, you know, Crocs, record player, George Foreman, I could do so. I mean, obviously it's funny because it says George Foreman right there. So it's pretty self-evident if I wanted to come in and just do little strips for there. So I do see Michelle is asking, how would I design a second page? So the second page, really, if you're going to do the second page, you almost need to be doing the second page when you're doing the first, especially if you want everything to come across that line together. So instead of doing, you could extend this 11.5 by 11.5 inch piece, just cut off that 1/4 of an inch all the way around. So it would be 11 3/4 inches wide by 11.5 tall. It's going to come all the way here to the middle. And then your second page, you would, when you're putting those, you take your two 11 1/4 inches wide by 11.5 inch tall, and you design them together. You need your two cutting mats or however, and then come across and then cut the page in half because you want this to extend on to the second page and then to continue on with your patterns here. So it really, you know, it can definitely be done. It's, you know, when we've done other layouts where I've extended that angle piece off onto the side, and you really do need to do both pieces at the same time and then cut down the middle. I could come back in here and it would be hard. I'd have to find the pieces. Like here's the piece that I cut off. No, this is the piece that went on the top. I'd have to go and find my pieces and then bring those over to the second page. So that's why it's easier to just go ahead and design it onto the second page first. You do 2 pages at once. And then you would use a pair of scissors to go, or you'd have to clean up your top edge and your bottom edge and then slide it into your trimmer to cut down the middle. So it can definitely be done. It just takes a little bit of finagling and being willing to work with those bigger pieces there. So I'm going to finish up some of the little embellishment details. I'm happy with the amount of journaling that I have the ability to do here. I just have to figure out, if I'm going to do these little banners, where am I going to do them? The other thing I could use, if I don't want to use the banners, I could come in. The banners are a 1/2 inch tall. The Creative Memories has that new sticker journaling strips that are 1/4 of an inch tall or 3/8 of an inch tall, so it'd be a little bit narrower. And I could certainly come in and just do a little piece like that. These are kind of, and maybe just because they're white, if I did them in a solid color, or not white, if I did them in like the green or something like that, or maybe if I just didn't have the banners on both ends, that could also be part of my, it's a little less figuring out how I'd want to put those on there. But you can see, what I ended up doing there is I just cut off one of the banner ends and straighten them out. And then they don't maybe look quite as jarring. They just blend in a little bit to the sides. So that's pretty much the layout for today. Leave the right side without a green border then. Yes, so Deborah is asking, I'm assuming this refers to a 2-page layout. If you are doing a 2-page layout, your center would not have the green border. It would be more seamless across the middle with this lighter green color there. So you're only taking 1/4 inch off of the width of your 12 by 12 paper and 1/2 inch off the height. And then you cut both sides to the same and then extend it on, doing it the same that way there. So you could do it 2 completely separate layouts, like having the border, but it's going to just it's going to feel a little bit more disjointed by having the green border or a border in the middle, because then you're going to have a full 1/2 inch. Plus your overall spacing on your spread, your layout, everything, they can be kind of side by side depending on how you're looking at your album. Sometimes they're a little bit separated, but you wouldn't have a border there. All right, so that was a fun one to put together. Maybe a little bit more, it's hard. Whenever you put things on an angle, no longer can I use my T-square to line things up. I had to, finagle a little bit with the photos, which is always when you put things on an angle or you're cropping things off the page, right? You've got to figure out, can I crop this part of the photo? Can I, how can I make this work? So that's really what it comes down to. And that's anytime you're adapting a layout that uses other supplies or even just your own photos, right? You have to make it work for your photos. So that is always a fun challenge. All right, so that's what I have for you today. I will be back next week in my new revamped space. It's not gonna be that glorious. Like I said, I was telling my husband last night, we're like, I'm sitting at this table and I'm mentally picturing myself, how am I going to make this work? Where am I going to put things? And I told him, it's just going to be different. I'm going to have to get used to something different. It's like whenever you go to like a crop and it's set up different, you don't have it set up the same as at home. So I have to figure that out. And he was like, well, what if we did this or this or this? I was like, this is only for 6 months. I have to make it work for 6 months. I can survive for 6 months. And then when I'm in Arizona, that will be the space to really put a lot of thought. And I'll really probably walk you guys through that process of setting up my scrap space there in Arizona, because I will have a dedicated room and we'll be investing a little bit more time and thought and effort into it, and not worried so much about just get it up there so we can get this space usable for my parents. All right, so I will be back next week with Scrapbook Live. This week is the virtual crop on Friday, so hopefully you guys have a chance to participate in that this weekend. It is scrapbooking weather out here in the U.S. for the majority of us. Anyone, if you're living in the southern states, you might not, maybe the weather will still be nice. You can go outside. Here it's going to be pretty miserable. So it's scrapbooking weather. It's some 4 new layout ideas from Creative Memories. They'll drop on Friday on the Creative Memories blog. And then preview this. Okay, so this Friday should be a preview Friday. There is a couple of new things coming out on Monday from Creative Memories. And then I believe the week after that, the 22nd, is going to be the secret box will be available. At least that's what Creative Memories has communicated to advisors. So that'll be very, very exciting. We'll have more details on how that's all going to work coming out soon. On Friday, I should have that information. Rosemarie is asking, when am I moving to Arizona? That'll be in June. I should be hopefully all situated in Arizona by early July. Cody will start school towards the beginning of August in Arizona. So, she asked where, not when. Phoenix. We are going to be moving back. I think we're trying to move back to the same general neighborhood we lived in before. For any of you who are familiar with Phoenix, we lived in North Central Phoenix, the Moon Valley area. So Thunderbird and Central 7th Ave, 7th Street in that general area. Very nice area. I love it's so close to everything. We love the school that our kids attended before, and we're pretty certain we want Cody to have that same experience that they did. Lots of field trips, parent involvement. Our school here in Arizona or in Washington is fantastic. In Arizona, it was just a little bit different, and it's just the nature of the different school systems between the two states. So anyway, we're looking forward to the sunshine, not looking forward to the heat, but we'll have a pool and yeah. Yes. So Jan is commenting. She's saying she loves the layout. Lots of patience needed. Yeah, just have a little bit of patience on this one, and it might come together a little bit easier for you than it did for me. I had a couple little nuanced things here, and of course, doing things on camera sometimes adds a little pressure. All right. That's all I have for you guys today. Like I said, next week we'll be back with another layout. It's crops, the virtual crop this weekend. Winter Frolic is going on. Tessa and I have that going on. Several of you are involved. Thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like to join, you can do so at megganandtessa.com. And then there's the Winter Frolic details. So I think that's all I've got. You guys have a wonderful rest of the week. I will see you all soon. Thanks for joining.